Michael Vonnen. Welcome to the Tolkien Lore Channel. This is the Tolkien Geek, and I'm doing an extra episode this week. This is the week of November the 13th, 2017, because in the short space since the video that I uploaded on Monday, we've actually got more news on Amazon buying the rights for Lord of the Rings TV series. And the news, in really quick summary, is they did buy the rights. They are going to have this is good news for Amazon Prime members. Amazon Prime members will be able to view it as part of their Prime membership, no additional charges. And it will be focused on new storylines that precede the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, it's still being pitched as a Lord of the Rings series, so the whole idea of what a series preceding the Fellowship of the Ring means is a little unclear. But there are a few resources out there to help kind of pick through that and kind of discern what it means. So one thing that I would like to point out real quick, there is an official announcement on Amazon's website, which I will link to below. There's also a handy-dandy piece kind of analyzing the language of that announcement over at the onering.net, basically pointing out, and I think they're right about this, what that whole language about preceding the fellowship actually means, and what their conclusion is, and partially this is based on the fact that the Silmarillion rights have never been sold, which you'd have to really know your stuff to really get that. And I trust the onering.net authors to know what they're talking about on that end. So assuming that that's correct, Silmarillion is still off the table for now. But the thing that is important is it's going to be prior to the events in the Fellowship of the Ring. What does that mean? Well, like the onering.net article that I'll link to kind of points out, the way Tolkien sold the rights to The Lord of the Rings was he basically sold the rights to the books, not the story of The Lord of the Rings. The importance of that is there's a lot of stuff in the appendices, of course. And the appendices contain a lot of material that happens before and even a little bit after The Lord of the Rings, but mostly before. It covers a lot of stuff, including a lot of events that happen in Numenor, but also a lot of stuff that happens in the Third Age. So there's a lot of material that they could go with in terms of what to build the series off of. Could be before The Hobbit, could be between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Who really knows? But that's kind of the basic news. Now let me kind of get into a little bit of what I'm thinking given the new information that we've got just in the last few days. So one of the interesting tidbits that also came out with the news is, and again, it's a little unclear because the news is a little bit sketchy. It's not 100% clear how much is fact, how much is surmise, but allegedly the Tolkien estate is going to be involved with Amazon in terms of writing and turning out whatever the story is. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but apparently the estate is going to have some hand in it. That's probably good news. That the Tolkien estate is not the same thing as Christopher Tolkien, so it's not necessarily the best possible news. But it's probably at least good news in the sense that hopefully there will be enough creative control that Amazon doesn't go completely off into left field and do something crazy with it. That being said, the fact that it's limited in scope to anything that's within the pages of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or a one-volume set if you have a one-volume set, means that we're looking at events mainly from the Second and Third Ages. And we don't know what that's going to be, but my thoughts initially are that if it's anything that's set kind of between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, which would make more sense as a Lord of the Rings series, so to speak, then I'm not really sure how excited I am about that, for the simple reason that a lot of the events that take place in between are written from, in the actual appendices in a very year-by-year style in terms of these are the major events that happened that kind of led up to the War of the Ring as we see it in the Lord of the Rings. And so trying to put a bunch of stuff in between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings would be kind of, you'd be forced to invent a lot of material. So, I mean, you could do a series that maybe focuses on Aragorn's, birth, life, and development up to the point where we meet him in Bree. That could be interesting, but you'd have to invent so much of it, and the inventor is not going to be J.R.R. Tolkien, so not really clear that would really live up to anybody's expectations. If it's stuff from before The Hobbit, you could do all kinds of different stuff. You could do a history of the Last Alliance, a history of, Numenor, a lot of the events that happened in Numenor. There's a lot of stuff that are covered in the annals that are included in the appendices that could be done. Again, even here, I'm not sure exactly how excited I am about that, for the simple reason, again, that a lot of it would have to be basically made up. I mean, if you do a series based on much of any of this, it's going to have to be almost entirely built from whole cloth, because Tolkien really only leaves a few nuggets in there of any interest. There's a lot of historical events that happen. For example, there's, the wars that the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor get into with different, evil kingdoms and whatnot, but there's not really a whole lot of a good plot and character-driven element there that would make for a good story. You could build one around it, but unless you've got really good writers who are really in tune with Tolkien and his writing style and his world and just the overall feel of the Lord of the Rings universe, what I'm afraid is going to happen is something like, essentially you end up with how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has kind of spawned the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. And I'm not dissing the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. I haven't even really seen it. But what I'm getting at is the idea that you have just this kind of series where exciting things happen every episode and stuff happens without any real overarching plot. And it's going to be hard to build an overarching plot out of any of the material that might be included, for the simple reason that so much of it spans a huge period of time. Very little of it has anything to do with a consistent character progression or anything like that. Because again, I mean, really you've got Aragorn's character, maybe a couple of other people that you could really focus on, but not many. So, I mean, you're not looking at a lot of character development or anything like that, unless you do something more along the lines of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you just basically make up little episodes to happen over and over again for however many seasons it goes. So, overall, the news is not that exciting to me. It's exciting in the sense that, wow, big things are happening in the world of Tolkien, but at this point, I'm kind of looking at it going, I wish this had gone a slightly different way. So I don't know how it's going to go. Maybe it'll turn out great. Good news is, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get to find out for free, so you don't have to waste any money on a ticket that turns out to be, why did I waste 3 hours of my life? So the worst that can happen if you're an Amazon Prime member is you spend a couple nights binge watching whatever series they come up with and find out, well, that's time in my life I'll never get back, but at least you didn't spend money on popcorn and a movie ticket. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Let me know your thoughts below. I mean, I'm hopeful, and I'd love for anybody with a more hopeful outlook on this to kind of pipe in and maybe raise my spirits a little bit, because it is interesting and an exciting piece of news, just in the general sense of stuff's happening in the world of Tolkien that hasn't happened in a while. I mean, we got Lord of the Rings movies, we got Hobbit movies, and beyond that, nobody really expected anything to happen. The Silmarillion was always a distant dream, no matter what. So we're looking at something in the relatively near future. There's still no word as far as creative talent attached or much of anything like that, at least to my knowledge. The news is still developing. So those are my thoughts. I'll just go ahead and leave it here. Just want to do a short video to kind of catch up on the new news that's happened since my last video release. So again, let me know your thoughts below. We'll see if we can come up with some good ideas that maybe somebody over at Amazon will listen to. You never know. Until next time, this is the Tolkien Geek signing out for the Tolkien Lore channel. Namaste.